Black Champions, December 1st, 1984. John Woodruff. Sound roll 16, camera roll 31, sound 50.
Mr. Woodruff, I wonder if we could begin by having you talk about where you grew up, where you went to school.
I went to school in a small town in Pennsylvania, Connellsville, Pennsylvania. It's a small town about 50 miles south of Pittsburgh.
Tell us something about growing up in Connellsville.
Well, of course, it's a small mining town. There were some small farms around that particular area, and growing up there was very wholesome, not too congested, and it was a very interesting place to have lived.
Were you an athletic youngster? Did you take to sports?
Well, yes, I did, but I didn't actually get into formalized sports until I was a junior in high school.
Tell us how that happened.
Well, the first 2 years of high school, my freshman and sophomore year, they didn't have any type of athletics at all. Track, football, basketball, nothing like that. Swimming. So when I went to the city high school in the city of Connellsville, I went out for football, and I stayed out up until the week before the first game, and of course my mother made me quit football because I was getting home too late, in the evenings to take care of my chores around the house. So the line coach of the football team was a track coach of the school, so he noticed that I was able to keep up with the quarterback on the football team. He was the sprinter when they had us running wind sprints up and down the field in our football uniform. So he invited me out for track, and that's how I actually got started.
Was this coach someone you feel really encouraged you in pursuit of an athlete?
Oh yeah.
Tell me about a time that a teacher encouraged you to be the best version of yourself.
Coach LaRue, he was a very nice man, and he encouraged me to go out for track. And when he found out, I had a certain amount of speed, he told me not to fool with football because he said he felt that the two sports two sports conflicted really. So I stayed out for track, and I did very well my first year of running in my junior year, and then of course my senior year, I set a state record in the mile, and I set also a state record in the half a mile, and of course I ended up by getting a scholarship to the University of Pittsburgh.
Had you planned before that to go to college, or was
No, had no idea that I was ever going to. I had no idea that I was ever going to be able to go to college because I knew financially I couldn't go because I came from a poor family, and I was the only one to go to college. But of course, when the opportunity became available for me to go, of course I took advantage of it.
How did the University of Pittsburgh approach you?
Well, the University of Pittsburgh, the school itself didn't approach me about going there. See, in my hometown, there was a dentist who was a graduate from the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Campbell, and he was strictly a Pitt man in every respect. So he encouraged me to go to the University of Pittsburgh.
From a small town in Pennsylvania to should we go on?
Cut. Sleep. Sound 51.
Now you've been a runner in high school for 2 years, and you've been recommended to take an opportunity to go to the University of Pittsburgh, and this was your first time in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that a little bit. What was it like for a kid from a little town?
Well, it was quite exciting for me, to go to the university and to see go to the city, because Connellsville was a very small town, about 13,000 people, and of course I didn't live right in the city of Connellsville. I live out on the outskirts, about 3.5 miles out of Connellsville, in South Connellsville, which was very rural, and country.
get an opportunity to see much of the city, or were you pretty much confined to the camp?
Oh yes, I had an opportunity to see quite a bit of the city because I lived at the YMCA for the 4 years that I went to Pitt, and so naturally I got a chance to see the city, you know, as much as I could during the time I was going there. See.
When you started running in Pittsburgh, was there any sense that, on your part, that you really had a pretty big career in front of you, or was it just something that you thought was a way of passing the time?
Well, see, I came along pretty fast, you know, and whenever to go back to my last year in high school, or my senior year, see, I set, as I said, I set a new state record for the mile, which was quite an accomplishment back in those days, and of course I did very well in the half mile and also in the quarter. Before I went to the University of Pittsburgh, I went down there to run against the best athletes that the University of Pittsburgh had. I was supposed to run against their best miler, but he refused to run against me, and I ran against their best half milers as a high school graduate, and I beat them. See, so I had the potential, and of course, then when I entered Pitt, you know, of course, I excelled in those areas, in the mile and the half mile and the quarter. See.
What kind of schedule did Pitt keep in those days? Well, who did you run against? What schools? How much traveling did you do?
We did quite a bit of traveling. We ran against Indiana. We ran against Penn State University. We ran against Ohio Northwestern University. We had a good schedule.
Do you remember some of the other outstanding runners of that period?
Well, let's see. Of course, you know, in Ohio, you know, of course, Owens was running in Ohio. Of course, he didn't run against me because Jesse was in the sprints, you see. At University of Indiana, I'm trying to think of the fellow that was their outstanding distance man there. Oh, what was that guy's name? See, this is what time does for you. See, I can't recall his name, but he was outstanding. Well, Tommy Decker was there at the time. Don Lash, you remember those names? See, they were going to university at the time. I was running at Pitt.
What year did you enter the University of Pittsburgh?
35.
1935. So
September 35.
So the 1936 Olympics are just a year away.
Right.
When you were
That's
a
right.
freshman. And, when you started at Pitt, did you have any idea that you were?
Had no idea at all that I would make the Olympic team. In fact, the Olympics never even came in my mind. I just ran that year, and of course, I started trying out. My coach had me try out for the different athletic contests to qualify me. See, I ran in the Allegheny Mountain Association track meet. That qualified me to run at the semifinal trials at Harvard Stadium in Boston, and of course I won up there, and then back to Randall's Island where they had the finals, and I won there, and of course went to Berlin.
When you began picking up, winning in these meets, when was it first put to you that you were going to go to the Olympics? How did you find out that you really had made this?
Well, when I won in the various tryouts, you see, when I won the semifinals at Boston, then I came to Randall's Island and I won the finals. Then I knew I was going to go to the games. You see.
When you got to travel over there, was this the first time you'd ever been out of the United States?
Oh yes, that was the first time.
Tell us a little bit about the experience of leaving the U.S. and going to another country with that.
Well, it was a great experience because, you know, we all went over on the boat, you see. We went on the SS Manhattan. Like today, you know, they fly everybody. But today, at that time, we all took the SS Manhattan out of the New York Harbor, and we sailed. And that was quite an experience because, you know, of course, I had an opportunity to My roommate was Mac Robinson, that's Jackie Robinson's brother, who took second to Jesse in the 200 meters, and we all became quite friendly on that trip over, because we did our workouts on the deck while traveling to Germany, and I became well acquainted with Ralph Metcalf and Jesse Owens and Dave Albritton and Cornelius Johnson. And Johnny Brooks. Those are all the fellows that were on the team.
How did Germany strike you when you arrived?
Very interesting place. Berlin, very clean place, you know, from what I recall in those days, you know.
Sound 52.
Mr. Woodruff, I wonder if you'd go back a bit in time and recall for us your impressions when you arrived in Germany as a member of the 1936 Olympic team.
Well, of course, was a long time ago, and of course, when arriving there, we were very impressed. We were very impressed with the facilities that they had for us, because we stayed at the Olympic Village, and our accommodations were very, very good. Our lodging, we stayed in little huts, you know, and the food was excellent. And of course, the food was provided for the American team by the members of the SS Bremen. That was a German luxury liner at that particular time, and they're the ones that prepared the food for us. But everything was very well done. Everything was clean and tidy. The Germans really put on a show.
Were you confident about winning? Did you really feel you were?
Well, I didn't. Well, I felt I had a good chance, you know, because anybody who wins in the United States has an excellent chance of winning in the Olympics, because the competition is so keen in the United States in order to make the team. So if you're representing the United States in your event and go to the Olympics, you have an excellent chance of winning in the Olympics.
Excuse me. I'm going to ask you if you can kind of go back over just what the process was for you getting to the 800-meter finals. Can you recall the amount of time, the days, or just how things passed, how you prepared, what kind of workouts? Just give us an idea of how it went right up to.
Well, my workouts weren't, because we didn't work near as hard as the athletes work today. In fact, in our training, it was a lot of fun. In the present day, you know, it's hard work, you know, and you have to be really, really dedicated. But of course, during my time, I guess I was a gifted athlete. I was born with the natural speed and the natural ability, and things just fell in line for me. I had no idea that I was going to make the team. I had no idea that I was that fast or that good, but it just happened. Because, you know, having only run 2 years in high school and 1 year in college and then make the team and then win the Olympics, you know, I had to have extraordinary ability at that particular time.
How many times did you have to run at Berlin before the finals?
Twice.
Would you describe those?
I ran the preliminaries, and of course I won that race. I ran in the semifinals, and I won that race, and then of course I ran in the finals.
Can you tell us about the finals? Do you recall it as vivid in your?
Yes, the final race was run a little bit different, quite a bit different than the preliminary in the semifinal. In the preliminary, I took the lead and I stayed in the lead and won the race. And I did the same thing in the semifinals, but I decided I would run a little more conservative in the finals. I decided I wasn't going to take the lead. I felt that I would just fall in behind the leader and follow him up to a certain point in the race, and then try to try to win the race from that point. Well, of course, Phil Edwards from Canada, who had been in the 32 Olympics, he set the pace, and he set a very, very slow pace, which was too slow for me. So as a result, and after running the first 400 meters and starting the first turn of the second of the last lap, or the second 400 meters, I got boxed in because the runners crowded right around me, and the only way that I could get out of that box, I had to practically stop and run on the outside. I ran out in the third lane, and then I ran around the whole field, and that's how I won the race. You see.
Was there a very special feeling about that race for you, representing your country far from home? I guess there was no family over there.
No, there was no family at all. It was a good feeling because I didn't realize just what I had accomplished until after it was all over with. But it was a very excellent feeling, and of course I always had that feeling that anytime I got in a race, I felt that I could win it. You see, I always felt confidence of winning every race that I got into. See,
did you participate in any other event, or just
just 800 meters?
None of the relay.
No.
What else do you remember about the 36 Olympics? Are there things that stand out in your memory?
Well, the thing that stands out a great deal about the 36th Olympic was how well it was run and how well organized. Because the Germans they really put on a show. Because talking with some of the old timers who had followed previous Olympic Games, and they said that was the finest set of Olympic Games that they'd ever witnessed, the one in Berlin.
Did you have an opportunity to see many of the other events?
Well, I saw Jesse perform in the long jump, and that was the only one that that was the only event that I actually was able to witness. You know.
Tell us what you remember about people like. I'll give you some names, and maybe you just comment on what you recall about these fellows at that time. Mac Robinson.
Of course, Mac and I were very close because we were roommates. We were roommates going over on the SS Manhattan, and of course, when we after the game's over and when we traveled to Norway, see, Mac was on the same team with me, so he was a very good athlete, and he really drove Jesse to setting a new world's record in that 200 meters because Mac was that good.
How about Ralph Metcalf?
Metcalf was like a father to us, you know, because he was the older athlete on the team. See, because Metcalf had been in the 32 Olympics, you know. See, I was 21, Metcalf was 27 during those games, you see, and he gave us a lot of advice, you know, and if we had any questions that concerned us concerning our event or athletics in general. See, Metcalf was there to answer those questions for us, you know.
What do you recall about Jesse Owens?
Jesse, of course, Jesse was a very fine man, very personable individual, and a very good athlete, as you all know. See, because I never talked too much to Jesse during the course of the games. I got to know him more after the games were over, when he came back to the States, you know. Are
there any other athletes from that 36 Olympics who come to your mind now?
Cornelius Johnson, the athlete who won the high jump. I got to know him quite well. He was very fine man, very personable fella, and of course he traveled on the same team with me when we went to Norway after the games. You see.
Tell us about that trip to Norway.
Well, that was a nice trip. You know, see, after the games, they broke us up. Some of us went in various parts of Europe, and Cornelius was one of the runners, and Mac Robinson, and myself, we were the three that went up to Norway with the team, with that particular team, and of course up there the people were very, very nice, and I think the atmosphere had a lot to do with our performances because everything was clean and the air was crisp, and we all performed very, very well up there.
How did people in places, Germany certainly to begin with, but in Norway, how did they react to black athletes? I have to assume that many people had never seen them.
Well, they hadn't. Many of them had never. I guess had never seen blacks. because I can recall I can recall a particular incident when we were walking on the street. One little boy walked up to me and he put his hand on my face. I get to see if that color was going to come off. You see, because up there you have a lot of blondes and people. That's all you see up in Norway is people who are blonde haired people, faces real flushed and red but it was I guess the atmosphere and in which you live up there and of course it had never been accustomed to seeing black people. See.
But were the people generally friendly?
Oh yes, they were very, very friendly. They were very nice. But so I guess we were kind of sort of curious individuals.
How long did you stay?
We were up there about 3 or 4 days.
And then you returned?
Then we all returned back to Paris. We returned to Paris. Then they had a big track meet in Paris, France. Then from there we took the boat back to America. Of course, Jesse came back ahead of us. He came back on the SS. He came back on the Queen Mary.
How were you received when you got back home?
Well, of course, when we got back into New York, they had a big ticker tape parade in Manhattan. Mayor LaGuardia put that on for us.
What about when you got back home? How did folks?
They had a big parade for me in my hometown in Collinsville.
Can you recall that? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it was the biggest thing that ever happened to me, and I guess it was the biggest thing that ever happened in that town, because I think every Tom, Dick, and Harry turned out for that parade. See?
We'll go back just to that
Yeah.
time when they changed. One more, Mag?
Yeah, one.
Okay.
We got speed. Okay, camera roll 33, sound 53.
Let's pick up again. Let's pick up again. Go back to the time you returned to the United States after the Olympic Games and after the time you spent in several other cities in Europe. You returned to Connellsville, and what happened?
Well, they put on a big parade for me. It was the largest parade that they've ever had in that small town. See, and everybody turned out for it, and it was a wonderful sensation. That was when I realized what I really had accomplished, based on the way the people had turned out to see me as a hero in that small town.
What was your record like overall as a runner?
Well, I had a very, very good record because I won every major track meet in this country. I won the half mile in the NCAA 3 years of succession, 37, 38, and 39. I won the IC4A championship in the half mile and the quarter, 37, 38, and 39. I won the Pan American Games. That's when I set a world's record in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas in 1937. Because I set the record because they didn't believe it. 1:47.8 because nobody had never run that fast before. You see. And they claimed they were going to give me that world's record. But after I left Dallas, Texas, and went to California on my way to Japan on one of those summer tours, it came out on the paper they found the track to be 6 feet short. Although when I set the record and it came out the paper the next day in Dallas, they claimed that the record would be accepted because a chief engineer of the Southern Methodist University had measured the track within 1,000th of an inch. But a week later, they found the track to be 6 feet short.
You ran indoors and outdoors.
Yes, but in my indoor running was very difficult for me because of my stride. And of course, I ran mostly at Madison Square Garden. And the old track used to be at 50th Street and 8th Avenue, and it was old wood track, but it was very difficult for me. Although I was able to win the Melrose Games in the half mile in 1940, because I'd made up my mind if I didn't win at that particular time, I'd never run at that garden again, because I had a lot of trouble trying to negotiate those board tracks.
Talk about that. Describe what the difficulty was, would you?
Well, the difficulty for me was the fact the track was short for me. See, because of my stride. See, if I didn't get out in front, it would just burn up because I could never get around anybody. See. So in 1940, my most successful.
Slate, please.
Sound 54.
Mr. Woodruff, you described some difficulty in running indoors. You said that you ran both indoors and outdoors. Tell us about the difference between the two.
Well, the difference is that the indoor running and running on indoor tracks they're much smaller tracks than the outdoor track. Your outdoor track is a quarter-mile track, and of course track is conducive to outdoor running. You see, and of course the indoor running is that's something extra, and unless you've trained on indoor tracks and on a regular basis, you have difficulty. Of course, there's some runners they just take to indoor running. You see, they do very well at it. As I mentioned earlier, Jimmy Herbert was very good at it. John Borkin was very good at it, and practically all the fellows up there from those schools around the New York area were very good at running those indoor tracks. But see, we didn't have that type of track back at the University of Pittsburgh. See, and so it made it very difficult for me.
Would you describe the particular difficulty you had?
Well, the difficulty was that the straightaways were so short that any time I tried to pass somebody, by the time I reached the opponent or tried to go by him, I was on a turn. And so with the momentum that I had built up, when I hit the turn, I would swing way up on the top. And of course, I'd lose 5 or 6 yards right there. See.
Let's go back a moment. We want to pick up a description that we didn't quite complete. Would you talk about the parade in New York when you returned from the Olympics?
Well, that parade was a very large parade that was put on, I guess sponsored by the Mayor LaGuardia, and of course we were all riding in various vehicles as we were passing through the city doing this ticker tape parade, and it was a very exciting thing for all of us,
You had never spent a lot of time in New York, I think.
No, not at all.
I'd like to talk a bit with you about the 1984 Olympics. I understand you went.
Yes, I did.
Tell us about the experience.
Well, that was a wonderful experience. I thought that those games was the finest games that was ever put on. I know that no other country in the future will ever be able to match those games because it was very well organized. The pageantry for the opening ceremony was superb, and the closing ceremony pageantry was superb, and the events, the track events, were excellent. Everybody performed wonderfully well.
Is there an event that stands out in your memory?
Well, let's see. I was very impressed with the athlete who won the half a mile. Naturally, would be. I forget what country that the fellow was from. The half a mile. He was supposed to run the mile, but he pulled out. I think he ran in the preliminary, and then he decided he wasn't going to run in the mile. But he did an excellent job. I forget what country. You can check that out. But he did a very fine job.
I wonder if you'd talk about, because this really is the subject of our film, I wonder if you'd talk about being a champion. How did it affect your life?
Well, of course, having won the Olympics as a freshman and then returning back to the university, well, of course, it didn't affect my life that much because I went right on back to school. I had to complete 3 more years of college before my graduation, and everything became routine again with me. See, because although at the university I was always kept on the spot because you see I was a track star at school, and they would always figure, like during the dual meet season, they'd always figure my points first, and then they would figure the other athletes' points on the team, uh, whereby we would win the meet. Because we had a paper there called a Pit Panther, and it would come out every week, you see, and because that's when they would figure my points, how many points I would win in the events that I would participate in, and then they'd figure the other athletes' points, and of course it kept me on the spot all the time, it kept me under pressure, and I got that pressure all through school, but I didn't mind it, but that's the way it was, you see.
In your life after you participated in college athletics, did you feel that the experience that you'd had as an athlete had some bearing on the way you conducted yourself later on in life?
Yeah, well, I think that the discipline that you receive in your training, I think it helps all athletes in taking part in other fields of endeavor. See, sports is good. Athletic sports is good for all individuals in that respect. You see, I think it helps them. I know I feel that it helped me. Mm-hmm.
Would you finish the sentence that begins "to be a champion"? How would you? Someone gave you that opening, "to be a champion." What would you say to the rest?
Well, to be a champion, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of self-discipline, a lot of hard work, conscientious effort in every respect, and clean living.
Who would you like for me to do a video on next? What are your thoughts about this video? Please share them in the comments. Please be honest when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.